In the quiet, high-ceilinged corridors of Windsor Castle, a single click of a security lock signaled the end of an era. Camilla stood before a door she had opened at will for years, only to find her cryptographic keycard flashing a cold, steady red. This was the moment she realized the institutional gates had been locked from the inside, not by an enemy from without, but by the very system she believed she had finally mastered. What she found behind that closed door is the story of a silent institutional execution. What looked like a routine administrative update was actually a total dismantling of her empire. Today, we are unpacking the most calculated power struggle in modern British royal history. This is the story of a hidden paper trail, a desperate grab for permanent financial legacy, and the moment Prince William and Princess Anne stepped into the shadows to lock the royal vaults. By the time this video ends, you will understand how a routine administrative audit became a total dismantling of an empire 30 years in the making. You will see exactly how the palace machinery was weaponized to remind Camilla of one devastating truth: she owns nothing. To understand the weight of this collapse, we must first look at the height of her perceived absolute power. For 3 decades, Camilla played the long game. She survived the public fury of the 90s, the enduring ghost of Princess Diana, and the cold resistance of the old court. Slowly, meticulously, she reauthored her own narrative. When she was crowned alongside King Charles, it looked like the ultimate victory. In her mind, she had successfully rewritten the rules of the institution. Her non-royal children Tom and Laura were no longer outsiders. They were being subtly positioned within the periphery of royal prestige. She believed Charles's absolute devotion gave her an unassailable shield. For a brief window, she felt completely untouchable, operating with the confidence of a woman who believed she had outmaneuvered the monarchy itself. But power within the House of Windsor is a volatile illusion, especially when the monarch's health begins to falter. As King Charles stepped back from certain public duties, an administrative vacuum opened. It was during this vulnerable window that what appeared to be a strategic move was set into motion. A series of discrete adjustments to financial trusts, property allocations, and future titles began moving through the bureaucratic pipeline. It was a calculated attempt to secure a permanent independent footprint for her own family line before the crown inevitably passed to the next generation. It was a play for deep financial autonomy hidden beneath the dense fog of routine administrative updates. What Camilla did not account for was the absolute vigilance of the bloodline. Prince William and Princess Anne have always shared a silent, unyielding commitment to the preservation of the institution's core assets. The alarm was raised, not by a dramatic confrontation, but by an empty payroll sheet and a series of anomalous requests regarding the king's private estate ledgers. Anne, long considered the administrative anchor of the family, noticed the subtle shifts in protocol. Together with William, they quietly intercepted the paper trail. They did not scream. They did not leak to the tabloids. They simply did what the royal family does best: they let the bureaucracy do the killing. The retaliation was cold, silent, and absolute. It began with the sudden revocation of administrative passes and the quiet changing of security clearances. Documents that required the king's signature were redirected away from Camilla's private office straight into the hands of the Prince of Wales. When Camilla reached out to intervene, she met a wall of absolute administrative silence. The trap had snapped shut. She was left standing in the corridor holding an invalid pass. Realizing that the sovereign she relied on was no longer the one pulling the strings, the immediate sting of the locked door was only the physical manifestation of a much deeper psychological fracture. When Camilla realized her administrative access had been severed, her instinct was to do what she had done successfully for 3 decades: bypass the bureaucracy and go straight to Charles. She believed that, as always, a private word in the king's ear would override any institutional hurdle. But that is where the story changes. When she brought the issue of the frozen trusts and the revoked clearances to the monarch, she was met with a devastating silence. King Charles, weary from his health battles and increasingly reliant on Prince William to maintain the operational continuity of the monarchy, did not overrule his heir. He did nothing. For Camilla, this inaction was a profound betrayal. It was the psychological climax of her entire royal existence. It was the exact moment she understood that his love might have made her queen, but it could not make her a stakeholder in the firm. To understand why this administrative freeze was so catastrophic for her, we must look at the brutal economic reality of her position. This is the staggering contrast of royal life, the ultimate schadenfreude that the public rarely sees. You can wear a priceless crown on your head, ride in a golden carriage, and yet hold the deeds to absolutely nothing. Camilla's recent maneuvers were born out of a quiet commercial desperation. She does not own the royal estates. She does not control the Duchy of Cornwall. That billion-dollar portfolio, the true engine of royal wealth, is now entirely William's domain. She does not have a blood claim to the sovereign grant. Her entire financial existence and any generational wealth she hoped to quietly pass down to Tom and Laura relies entirely on the grace of the reigning monarch. By locking the royal vaults, William effectively reminded her that she is merely a guest in his future kingdom. When William took over the Duchy of Cornwall, he did not just inherit land, he inherited the ultimate royal audit. He and Princess Anne began a forensic examination of the ledgers. They saw the subtle attempts to reallocate funds, the quiet requests for grace and favour properties to be assigned to Camilla's private circle, and the creeping expansion of her personal payroll. They weaponized the Crown's administrative protocol to protect the institution from what they perceived as a staggering exploitation of a vulnerable king. They neutralized her without a single raised voice. They did not confront her in the drawing rooms of Buckingham Palace. They simply cut the financial oxygen to her private empire. And as Camilla's influence was quietly boxed in a different power center began to radiate, Catherine, who has endured years of subtle slights and uncomplaining sacrifice, is now stepping into the void. She is doing so not with demanding ambition, but with undeniable institutional authority. We saw this shift recently in a detail so small it was almost missed by the untrained eye, but perfectly understood by those inside the palace walls. During a recent high-level reception at a royal residence, what viewers noticed was the deliberate placement of a specific portrait of Princess Diana. It had been brought out of the royal storage archives and hung in the exact anteroom where Camilla's private guests used to gather before audiences. That detail matters. It was not a random interior design choice. It was a forensic visual reclamation of history. It was William making a silent, unyielding statement that the era of institutional erasure is over. The psychological warfare of the royal family is rarely fought with shouting matches. It is fought with side doors, revoked access, and removed portraits. It is fought by making someone invisible in the very rooms they thought they commanded. Today, Camilla finds herself trapped in a gilded paradox. She achieved the title she spent a lifetime chasing, only to discover that the absolute power she thought came with it is an illusion. The paper trail she hoped would secure her family's future became the very evidence used to dismantle it. William and Anne have drawn a line in the sand. They have executed a flawless silent retaliation, ensuring that the legacy of the crown, the integrity of its vaults, and the memory of Diana will not be rewritten by the person who spent 30 years trying to erase them. The reign of Charles may continue for now, but the era of Camilla's unchecked influence has been quietly, ruthlessly terminated. If you found this breakdown of royal power dynamics insightful, make sure to subscribe and leave your thoughts below on how Prince William is protecting the future of the monarchy.